Hey guys, it's Christa and Dalton here. So we're not sure if you've seen the first video that we put out earlier today. It's called We Witnessed Our Daughter Being Healed, and that we're releasing healing and miracles from the throne room of God today. So we release that to you right now in the name of Yeshua.
Yes.
In that video, I pray for you guys. I release that, and then I pray for you guys. I pray for healing for many different things, just being led by the Holy Spirit to do that in that moment, because we knew something really big had happened. So just kind of a recap, if you haven't watched that yet, but go back and watch that. And I'll try to do this short because the first one wasn't. But so this morning we woke up and Dalton told me that Delaney had a thrush in her mouth, and I had noticed her mouth looked a little different for a few days. I just couldn't really I noticed it was more white, but didn't think anything was wrong. And he told me that this morning, said it was nothing we did, that it's just normal, it'll run its course. We can call her pediatrician on Monday and get some medicine. She didn't seem like if she was in any pain. She was kind of pushing her bottle away a little bit, and it did look really white. And obviously felt really bad for her. Well, he left the room and I prayed over her. And I just asked God to take that thrush away and to heal her in the name of Jesus. And a few minutes later, he's on the phone. I'm sitting there with her, and all of a sudden, like, all of this white stuff starts coming out of her mouth, which at first glance, it looked like spit up. But I noticed it looked different, and I thought, that's odd. And I didn't really have anybody to talk to, like, I didn't. You weren't.
I was on a business call, and so there wasn't like
I couldn't be like, "Hey, look at this."
This feedback.
Right, and so I clean it up, and then I walk out of the room, and I come back, and there's a bunch on the bed, and I was like, "Whoa!" Like big spit up. Well, when I wiped it, I noticed it was thick. I noticed it kind of smeared on the sheets, and I thought, like, that's the yeast that's in her mouth. And I thought, well, that's weird. Again, he's on a call. Couldn't ask him, like, hey, what's going on? And we were getting ready to take the girls to the skating rink. So we were kind of trying to get a bunch of stuff done. So by the time he gets off the call, I'm not even thinking about this. But this all happens probably within an hour, honestly, from the time this kind of started, maybe an hour and a half, to the time that actually discovered her healing at the skating rink. So we get to the skating rink. I go to the bathroom to change her before handing her over to be held by her grandparents. And that's who she was going to hang out with the whole time, and we were going to skate. So the baby is taken care of. Yeah. Just keep that in mind. Yeah. And so I go to the bathroom to change her diaper, and I look at her, and I just notice she looks different. Yeah. I notice her mouth looks different. And I look, okay, so when he told me she had thrush, he showed me her inside of her lip, and there were little blister-looking things all on the inside of her lip in like a row, lining the entire width of her lips. And I noticed her mouth looked different, and I pulled her lip down. There wasn't one mark. Yeah. The white in her mouth was almost completely gone. I mean, just a little bit. And that's on the tongue,
not on the lips, because she's like,
it was
come look at this. And I looked at it like an hour or 2 hours ago, and literally they were bright, they were large, they weren't something that was just like a small little pimple. I mean, they were pretty extensive all across the inside of the lip. Her tongue was like coated in this, this white covering, and it was something that I had noticed that white spit up had happened, but it wasn't from a formula. It wasn't from any kind of milk.
It was different.
It was a complete different consistency, and it's something that whenever we got to that part in the skating rink, she comes out and tells me, she's like, look at...
No, I just said, go look in her mouth.
Go look in her mouth.
I didn't want to tell him. I didn't tell him what I'd witnessed. I just said, hey, go look in Delaney's mouth.
Right.
And he's like, what is it? And I said, just go look. And he goes... What did you say?
Yeah, it was like, oh my, I was like, whoa, that was something that was a complete moment where you look in there and you're like, there is nothing there. It's completely spotless. Yeah. And the entirety of her mouth, every single one of those white areas is gone, and her tongue is back, her tongue was back to a normal
It's a little bit of white from the milk. Like it's just she's had that since.
Yeah, we knew that the milk was there and the milk is fine.
Little
it was
tiny
just
bit. It's just that milk white. It's not.
Yeah, and we did not. It's not like it's something that we cleaned her tongue or cleaned her gums or put any medicine. There wasn't a single thing that we did.
She seemed like she was okay, and so until we were going to do something on Monday, we weren't going to really touch it because she didn't seem like she was in pain.
Yeah.
And so immediately I'm like in the bathroom. After I saw that, I started praising the Lord and I started praying for people. I started praying for us. I started praying for people just immediately. And so then I go out there. He witnesses it. And then I told him that I'd prayed. And I said, because we just gotten there. And we were all going to finally get to skate together. And I said, I really feel like I need to go pray some more.
Yeah.
And so he said, okay. And he gave me the keys to the car. And then he gave me our phones. And he said, I think you need to take our subscribers with you on that. And I was like, yeah, I think you do. And so I went and I got in the car and I started to pray, and then I thought, no, like just, you need to.
Yeah, it was like that urgency to get this out.
And so I did it, and while I was doing it, after it's done, I walk in the skating rink, and he skates up to me and he goes, "What just happened?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "What just happened?" So then this is where we really wanted to share with you is what was happening while I was out there making that video and praying with you guys, what this other part of it looked like as far as,
Yeah, it was it was intense. I mean, some of a lot of I'm a seer within the courts of heaven, meaning I can actually, when God shows me and talks to me and discusses this with me, it's something that I actually get this video and this picture in my head, almost like this movie reel, and it's not just something that affects like this mind's eye, but it's something that I actually feel. I feel that atmosphere. I'm very my skin, like all of my hairs, like I'm very sensitive to when I can feel that spirit and that motion happening. And so this was a moment where, as I was, as she had just gone out to the car, I felt this moment where it was like I need to start praying in tongues, because even like I know for a fact I can't go out there and be with her in this moment because someone's got to watch the kids, and it wasn't that kind of a situation where we could both just dip out and kind of go handle this. And so it was like, I know that God has me in this moment and he has her in that moment, and I know that for the part of that, that's completely designed. Every single part of that night, even leading up to who was there, how we got there, all the other stuff about it was lined up for this moed to take place, and us to not have to have any other concerns about who's watching the kids, and is everything okay, and what's like, we actually got to experience the fullness in this moment. So as I'm skating around, making sure that our older daughters are doing fine, I feel this urgency where it's like, you need to be able to also, like, how do I maximize my effectiveness if I'm not next to her in this moment? And I felt this urgency to just start praying, and so I started my prayer language. And if there's ever been anyone that you've had multiple languages, or you feel in that moment that there is a different attitude or a different kind of feeling or emotion behind your prayer language, and it sounds very different. I've had a few of those, and I've gotten pretty used to noticing which one's which. But the one that I was praying in tonight, it didn't have a civilian feel to it. It felt like a very war general, very commanded, decorated officer's voice in that speaking. Whenever I was speaking in tongues over that way, it was just a way of being able to feel that this was a different type of, this was a different voice and proclamations that we were making. And I felt in the spirit that there was this portal that just came down like the center of a tornado directly over the skating rink where we were at. And I felt there being this communication that was just happening back and forth, and it was something that was this open dialogue and open discussion coming directly from the courts of heaven. We were receiving the fullness of it right here in our location. And as we were sitting there, and I was just skating around and I was praying in this language, I felt that in the spirit there was this part where the spirits that were around me regionally were basically saying, if you keep this up while you're praying in tongues going around this secular place, you're going to start being noticed by the regional spirits that were in this area. They're going to be paying attention to you, and this is going to be something that they're going to direct. You're going to you're putting a mark on your back. And I felt in that moment where it was God basically saying, this is something that, would you like to continue with this? Is this some, it's kind of like this is your last chance to kind of back out now. If you keep going on at this part, this is going to break through, and you're going to have all the eyes on you. And at that moment, I just prayed louder and got, and at that part, I felt it shift. I literally felt spirits in the room. I felt there being actual direction and gaze where they actually turned, and I felt that as some of the skaters were going around me, I actually had a feeling and a presence that some of those spirits were actually present in that area, that we're trying to get a closer view, basically, of what was taking place spiritually in that place. And as I was praying there, I finished going around, and a couple of times, I went over to check on our other daughter, making sure everything was fine. As I go back out onto the skating rink again, I feel this moment where it's coming over, basically saying, all of the enemy has been exposed to what you were doing, but in that declaration, what you did, they actually removed the legal right that they had in this region. And in that moment, I felt that there was actually a wave release, and it felt that there was actually a liquid air in the atmosphere. It was something very, very, very unique. I've never had that feeling, but it actually felt like you were actually walking in water as you were moving straight forward in front of you, like you were actually breathing this particle. But the air was actually different. It actually even felt like it dropped. It actually dropped and became cool in there. It had like a more of a misty feel of it, like it was actually tangible. And as this was taking place, I felt that I could actually feel like there was a waterfall, that a dam had broken loose within the courts, and that there had been this incredible release. And as this release is happening, I'm feeling in the spirit almost so overwhelmed, because I knew that whatever she was dealing, and I haven't even watched that video yet, but I have this feeling that everything that was being spoken over and done on her side of it, whenever I do watch that tomorrow, it will be, I actually can say this was the moment where I actually felt like that shift happened and took place, because that's going to be familiar to me. I'm going to know what that actually felt like spiritually, and that's going to be really incredible. But as we were praying over this part, I felt like this wave was literally removing regional territories and water lines, in the same way that whenever you have a washout flood, territory lines can get disoriented. The places where all the structures that had been previously surrounded, it's a clean slate. And as soon as I felt that flood take place, I felt that all of those eyes that had been looking on me previously shifted to a place that they had just been uprooted from their home now, and they were begging for mercy. And this was the same spirit that a few breaths ago was trying to size me up, were actually trying to find out what I was going on and why I had come in and was starting to disrupt this atmosphere. And that feeling of it shifting as soon as that waterfall took place and happened in that area, there was a shift that took place that made it feel that their entire power dynamic completely shifted in a moment, and now they were basically begging for their lives of, don't do anything to harm me, I'll go. And as that was happening, it was such an overwhelming feeling that God had literally completely overwhelmed that battle in such a dramatic way. It wasn't like a simple little rain cloud. It wasn't something that a small little drizzle on a Sunday afternoon. This was a monsoon torrent, downfall, flash flood, all of that area, and it completely removed their right to be able to claim it. And so as I followed up, I felt in my spirit it was something that I'm now supposed to reclaim this land, and this is where that directive is that waterfall. And the spirit symbolically is letting every one of those lines that the enemy used to use, as saying you can come to here but no farther. This is saying that God has removed those boundaries, and that now you've got that season to be able to expand into it. You've got that ability to be able to walk into those places and claim that land as your own, and to be able to say that the enemy has no right over that area any longer. And that's going to be something that we're moving forward with. There was a third part about it too, and this was the part where I felt like there was a different spirit behind this one. But there was a part where it was feeling that though this healing had poured out, through this miraculous encounter had poured out, there was also a separate encounter that was also taking place on the spiritual side for the enemy. And for those who had shown interest in hearing some of my discussion about how I progressed in becoming a seer within the courts and how that took place, and we're still working on the details of how to really release that, but to kind of give an intro into what that would look like, is that there was a place in the courts of heaven that I visited that had things that were trying to kill me. This was a place that had been locked up, and in that spot I felt that I knew that there was dangers that were in this darkness in this area, but I knew that they also had a limit to what they could do in order to reach me. And I felt that line happen, and I had known in that moment that when I passed over that line, there was going to be this horrible thing that would take joy in basically taking my life. It was a very different time of being in the courts that was completely different than any of the other rooms I had ever been in. It was something that I actually even had to talk with God about it afterwards, of like, what was that? And that took a spiritual journey in there to get through that process, and we figured out what was going on, and we've grown from all these different areas. But one of those things that felt place, it was that there was that limitation on what the enemy could do, and I knew it, and I knew that whenever I walked in that place and I prayed in that place, that there were things there that were trying to instantly stop me. And this was the exact situation that played out in the physical, and this was maybe a year ago, whenever we heard about this. I knew what was happening in this moment because I had lived it spiritually a year before.
Right, I remember when that happened.
And this was the fulfillment of what God had shown us in our books, from a dream that we had talked about and a vision that we had talked about that had very real implications while we were praying in the courts one day. And one of the ways that session within the courts had ended was there was a point where I came face to face with the principality of that land, and it was a moment that I have never really encountered anything like it since. But it was a massive being. And there was this moment that I had stood in front of these city gates, and I could tell that there were lights happening in cities that were across these fields. But the problem was that it was darkness, and there was a darkness and a fog that was over the land, and it prevented there from being any communication and any connection from these cities. And each one of these cities had walled up their defenses, walled up their fortifications, and had made themselves as secure as they could, because the beast that ruled the night, that principality in the region, was looking forward for anyone that was not caught up and not protected in that time. And I felt like in that moment, whenever I was actually transported this third time, I was transported to this same place, this same region. I had been there before, to the same exact scenario, but instead of it being a darkness of night, it was something that was complete daylight. And there was daylight completely. You could see the cities, you could see the path clearly. You didn't have any hold within that. And I felt like in that moment, I felt God say, I removed the jaws from the monsters that ruled this land, and you are now able to connect with the people that they had prevented you from meeting. And I feel like that connection is definitely for right now. I feel like that moment is for right now, is realizing that every spiritual force that was going against you in that season to keep you disconnected, to keep you isolated, to keep you alone, to keep you in all of those areas from not being able to rely on anybody but what you felt like was your own self in that moment, has now been saying the gates are open, it's daylight, and the enemy has been dethorned. There is no power in that bite. And in the same way that those spirits begged for mercy tonight as I was claiming area over this land, there was a shift in that power, that the principality got completely unseated. And I think that's the word, is unseated from power, and there is that fresh season now to be able to connect in this time. And this was what God was speaking to me in this whole time that this moment was happening out with her simultaneously. So we just wanted to make this content for you available right now. We are planning to actually do a live stream for the first time in our channel's career, and we're going to be doing that tonight on 9/11, or not tonight, tomorrow night on 9/11
Yeah, we're releasing
23.
this in the
So yeah, we're
morning.
releasing this on 11. So
So it'll be
that night at 7 p.m. Central, give or take give us a little bit of time. It's our first time. But as soon as we find out when that release date will be, we'll have it scheduled. We would love for you to join us, because this is something that we're going to really be breaking this down for a while. This was a monumental shift. We're going to be praying about it in the courts. We're going to be going about it. We're going to be finding deliverance. For any areas, from anyone that's wanting that, we're going to be doing that tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's the thing is right now, I mean, he released it, so that is yours. So watch the other video whenever I pray through everyone, and God was showing me body parts, and I've never seen anything like that before. But when I started praying for healing, I saw the body, and I started seeing parts of the body being highlighted, and I just said them. And so I mean, if you're needing healing, watch that video and stay through the prayer and really receive that for yourself. And also, this is the time to be praying for other people to be, and I know this was a confirmation for someone, but praying for other people to be healed. This is a time where you have, I mean, it has been released. It is the time for healing, and it's the time for miracles. This is instantaneous stuff. This is watching limbs grow back. This is watching the dead come back. This is big. This is huge. So we release that to you in the name of Yeshua, and we bless that to go forward in Jesus' name.
Yeah.
So we just wanted to share his part with you, because like he said, he couldn't come with me when we were going. It would have been awesome, but he couldn't come. And so we wanted to capture this while it's still fresh, because we witnessed a miracle, guys. We witnessed a miracle in front of our face. I mean, it was incredible.
Right.
She's healed. We don't have to do anything now. And we prayed over so many people to be healed and to be delivered, and I'm believing, and I know that we've just entered into a place where, like he said, the gate is opened. You know, it's a different season, it's a different time, and God is releasing miracles and healing right now. So take that for yourself.
Yeah, so we just want to encourage you. We want this to be able to see that. I know that this is something that's for the night that this comes out, the live Q&A, and for those people watching it after the fact, it'll be listed on our channel as well. But for those that want to be able to come in that moment and be able to see that and follow that through and actually be able to have some real life discussion about it, we're going to set this up, but it's going to be, we're going to get some new things started for the channel and the direction and where we're seeing this go, because God's taken it and we are along for the ride.
Yeah, so fun little side note, people that, been with us for a minute, this is not where I saw this going this week, guys. This is not where I saw this going this week. I thought about it,
Yeah.
I thought, okay, excited to make more videos this coming week. Had no idea what was going to happen today, and had no idea that, what God was going to do. It's so cool.
Yeah,
it's
and this
so
is
exciting.
It's prophetic that this is happening right before
Rosh
Hashanah, which is going to be this Friday, this Saturday,
and it's
over that time frame.
5784 for the the Jewish year, and that's open door. So prophetically, this is so on point, and really excited to see I'm so excited for this feast.
Yeah, and where we get the open door on that part is undergoing through the significance of each number throughout the Jewish year. 5 is grace, the 7 is for perfection, the 8 is for new beginnings, and the 4 is the open door. So when we take together what the message is for what God has for this season is basically God saying, I'm giving you the grace to walk in my perfection and my new beginning through your open door.
Yeah.
And we have seen that in our life this week
healed,
a few times now at this point.
So incredible.
And we know that this is what God's wanting to do with us, and
He's just doing His thing, guys.
It's awesome.
It's so fun. So we are loving this, and we just bless you guys. And so leave us the comments below and just receive this for yourself and go pray for some people.
We'll see you tonight.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.